What's going on, everybody? We have a very special guest today, Mr. Trent Dilfer. Just gonna let you guys know who he is in case you don't know. As Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, a husband, father, and head coach of the Lipscomb Mustangs. How you doing, Trent?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Oh, no problem. Listen, thank you. Like I said, thank you for being here today. My co-host couldn't be here today, but he still wanted to go ahead and get the interview done. Like I said, we appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule. I understand how difficult it is trying to run a football program and with all the responsibilities that come with it. So, like I said, I appreciate you for your time.
No, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, my first question for you, you were, like I said, you were a top 6 pick, Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion. What was your favorite accomplishment while playing in the NFL?
That's a great question. I think most people would think it was winning the Super Bowl with the Ravens, but I actually probably take a little more pride or am proud of the accomplishments we had in Tampa. When I got there in '94 as a 6th pick of the draft, we were the worst franchise in football. Not just from a personnel standpoint, but the coaches were on their last legs. Front office was disorganized. Ownership was trying to sell the team. There was nobody was coming to the games. If we played the Bears at home in the Big Sombrero, there would be 40,000 Bears fans and 15,000 Bucks fans. The road team usually had a better fan base than us. So there was a lot. It was downtrodden. And John Lynch and Warren Sapp and Warwick Dunn and Mike Allstott and Rondé Barber and a bunch of guys, Paul Gruber, Quez Green, Riddell Anthony. I mean, these were the guys that got us back to relevancy in '96. And then in '97, we went to the playoffs. We won a playoff game. We barely lost to the Packers up in Green Bay in the divisional round. We had 9 guys go to the Pro Bowl. We had really turned it around. And that journey is probably what I'm most proud of because the lows were so low. I mean, I tell people all the time, I was literally the worst football player in the NFL my second year in the NFL, the worst. And the scrutiny that came with that, the identity crisis that came with it was brutal. And then to have a group of guys kind of help pull you out of it, and then accomplish some pretty cool stuff is something I'll always remember. And I'm still really close to those guys. We joke about some of those times and are really proud as a group of what we accomplished.
You mentioned some of the guys, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber, Mike Allstott, John Lynch, Warren Sapp. You also played with Ray Lewis and Shannon Sharp. How was it playing with those guys who are all considered all-time greats? How was it playing with those guys?
Well, I've gone back to my career a couple of times. When I was at ESPN, I always said, I was never great, but I've been fortunate enough to be around greatness. Future Hall of Fame coaches or existing Hall of Fame coaches. I think 10 Hall of Famers right now I played with, and that number is going to go up. So I've really studied greatness, had a chance to be around it. And, you can't forget the Brooks and the Allstotts and the Lynches and the Sapps, but then you get to Baltimore and I'm immediately with, I think, 4 Hall of Famers, Ray, Shannon, Ben Coates, Rod Woodson, Jonathan Ogden, 5. So, that group had some great years. We had our 20-year anniversary Zoom Super Bowl reunion the other night, and it was really neat to kind of to reflect back on that team and how many great players were on it. And then you go to the coaches, your Rex Ryans, your Marvin Lewis's, Brian Billick, obviously the head coach, Matt Cavanaugh, Jack Del Rio, like incredible coaches. So really lucky and friends to this day. I think Ray and Rod and Shannon have probably done more for my post career than anybody because they've been advocates of the type of player and leader and person I was. They've stood on their soapbox and said, great things about me publicly. So I'm indebted to them both as, what great players they were. It's the only reason we were able to win a Super Bowl. I was surrounded by such great guys. And then 20 years after, how we've really supported each other.
I know that there had to be, there had to be a wonderful experience. And it was just something, obviously me, like a lot of young men, have a dream of playing in the NFL someday. But it was at some point you had a dream, and to be able to actually do it and to play at the highest level, win at the highest level, and play with some of the best, of all time. I know it has to be like, I know it has to be something special. I know it feels special for you.
And I take a lot from my career, lessons learned, good and bad. I think I've been really fortunate, though. I've had people outside of my football life that have always encouraged me not to let my identity be wrapped up in what I did, or what I'm doing, but more in who I am. And I think that's important for a lot of ex-athletes, that we're very lucky, and you have to be appreciative of the blessings we have as athletes. It creates generational wealth for your family. The impact you can have in your communities is awesome. Obviously, the gratification of reaching your dreams, but it ends, and it ends abruptly. And you got to make sure that it's prepared you for something bigger than what you did. And I've had really good mentors that have helped me with that perspective. And it's why I'm where I'm at today. I take probably as much satisfaction, if not more, in getting a 15-year-old to help chase his high school dream. But to him, that's an incredible accomplishment, to his family. And there's a lot of rewards in seeing that kid through his high school journey.
And I know you mentioned, you learned a lot of lessons, and how did those, now I want to get into coaching a little bit. How did those lessons, help you become the coach that you are right now?
I think number one, perspective. If there's anything that a guy that's been around a lot of football, the advantage that person has, and the quarterbacks, I think, have a unique perspective. I'm not going to say better or worse, but unique. You've seen a lot of stuff. You've seen things that work. You've been around fake coaching. You've been around guys that could talk coach but not teach. You've been around great stuff. You've been around some of the greatest minds and greatest teachers football has to offer. You have experiential data, meaning like there's scar tissue. So ooh, that one hurt me as a player. That didn't resonate with me as a player, so I don't want to replicate that. You have things that connected with you as a player. And you want to maximize those things. You want to amplify those messages. So I think perspective's a huge thing. Again, I don't relate very well to a 17, 16-year-old boy right now. I'm 48. I've raised 3 daughters. So there's times where I'm learning from them, and I have to tap into my friends now that have teenage boys. John Lynch is a great example. I called John up times my first year. He had a son that had just finished his high school experience, and he had just raised a boy and launched him into college, who was a football player, and was able to tap into that relationship and be like, hey, I don't understand what's going through the mind of a 16, 17-year-old boy right now. Help me better understand it. And I think having all this, call it a big giant stew, right? You're making stew. And I think the meat of that stew is your experience and your perspective. And then you lean into that to find with your community to help you find whatever makes that stew up. I spent a decade, leading the Elite 11. And I think I learned a lot about high school grassroots coaching. I think I learned some about kids and everything that I needed to know. But you take all that stuff, and I think it's prepared me for what I'm doing now. And I'm growing. I tell my staff, I tell the kids every year, I take a month when the season's over and do self-reflection and self-growth. And I probably learned as much
I know you spoke about the Elite 11, which kind of led right into my next question. A lot of us watch, a lot of sports fans. I love, me personally, I love the Elite 11. I used to watch it all the time. Uh, how did that, help you in your transition to being a head coach at the high school level?
Well, that was big. It was already a really good camp, right? So I always say that we didn't build the Elite 11. The Elite 11 was an established camp. It was a really neat brand, had great leadership. Um, it was birthed by wise gray hairs that have been around the high school space forever. What we did was breathe life and energy into it and kind of take it, and we timed it up perfectly with kind of the social media explosion, the explosion of high school, where we went in there and we just kind of added some gravitas to it. We added higher level of sophistication, and then really the secret sauce to Elite 11 was the amount of coaches around the country that became core staff members. So my right hand man, a guy named Joey Roberts, who has as much influence in the high school space as anybody, him and I kind of went on this quest to go identify young, vibrant coaches around the country and empower them to not just grow their businesses, but to impact ones. And by doing so, you ended up with the Kevin O'Connells, the Charlie Frys, the Quincy Averys, Jordan Palmers, Justin Hoovers, Paul Troth, Adam Tafralis, Gerard Johnson, Sione Tafua, like guys that now are crushing the football space. Charlie's the quarterbacks coach of the Dolphins. Gerard's with the Colts. Jordan Palmer's probably the premier quarterback whisperer in the country. George Whitfield. I can go on and on and on. And these guys have taken the core values of what we established in the Elite 11 and been able to spread them throughout the country. And by doing that, obviously the quarterback space is better. There's more kids being impacted in a positive way. There's the brand has grown because the TV product is better. The documentaries are really cool. And you're seeing, authentic, genuine people that care about kids and the development of kids taking over. And I'd be remiss to say none of this happens without the leadership of a guy named Brian Stump, who's the president of student sports out in California. Like, he was really the visionary behind hiring me. Him and Andy Bark, the owner, allowed me a long leash because there was some disruptive times the first 3 years, much like here at Lipscomb Academy, where we pretty much turned the thing upside down and disrupted the way of doing things. And you got to have the trust of your leaders. And Brian's an incredible leader, a great partner. And again, a guy that's seen more high school athletes probably than anybody in the country over the last 20 years, evaluated more of them, been around them. To this day, him and Yogi Roth and Joey probably get more phone calls from quarterbacks and other athletes around the country that are, having challenges in their journey, and they look back to us as a support system.
And yeah, I like me or many others. You've put together a successful program in just 2 seasons. You've been to the playoffs twice, have a 20-9 record, and this past season you were in the state championship game and only lost by 7. How have you been able to build such a successful program in such a short time?
Takes everybody. The first time I ever met with this community, I said, I'm going to say this, and you're going to nod your heads, but you're not really going to understand what I mean. For where we're going, it's going to take everybody. And that's from administration. We're attached to a university, so it was going to take the university support, parents, obviously, grandparents, siblings, support staff within the academy, obviously the coaches, the players to buy in. But we say around here, the way you do small things is the way you do all things, and everybody had to jump on board to do in their life with more excellence. And really what we sold, and if you chase and pursue your God-given potential, the overflow of excellence that's going to come with that is going to seep into every area of your life. So it wasn't just about building a good football program. It's about building better academics. You know, my 2 years here, we've crushed the team GPA records that were here before. Esteemed awards for our team GPA. I think we had 17 kids with over 4.0s and 80 kids with over 3.0s. You know, we said it would pour over into their social lives, that all of a sudden their groups would be different. They would look different. They would sound different. We're seeing an impact there. It would help their family life. They'd be better brothers, and they'd be better brothers to their sisters, to their brothers. They'd be better kids to their parents. Seen that. We've had a lot of parents come and say, it's amazing how much my boy's changed and how much better he is to have from home. We've had our boys write parent affirmation letters where they pour into their parents and say how much they appreciate their parents. You do all this stuff, we call it, you know, a human development program as a high school football team. As they grow as humans, as they start giving more of themselves to better the world they're living in, the football stuff is naturally. There's obviously going to be a better product that overflows into Friday nights when they're doing everything else pursuing excellence. So we take the football very serious. There's absolutely a high level of sophistication to how we develop them as football players, as athletes, but it's secondary to their life development. This evening, I'm meeting with a player that's a senior that's going through some confusion in life, just with the direction where he wants to go now. He knows that he can come to us. You know, he's met with a couple of coaches already. He's going to meet with me tonight. He knows that we want to be mentors and help him along that journey. We've dealt with all kinds of social issues on our team, emotional issues with players, identity issues, you name it. We feel like if we pour into them as a coaching staff, that they're going to have a better contribution to the world they live in. And obviously they're going to play better football. And we don't make any bones about it. We're trying to win every game we play. It hurts like heck that we lost the last game of the season. I don't like that you gave our career record and there's 9 L's in there. I don't want to lose 9 times. So we want to win football games, but we know that that is a byproduct of pursuing something bigger in life.
And I know you mentioned, like you said, you know, when you pour into the players and they pour into their parents, you know, it's a whole community is putting in to build a successful program. And I think that's something that a lot of high school coaches don't really understand. I know high school I come from, you know, I come from a small city. I'm not sure you're not familiar with Brownsville, Tennessee. But from there, I feel like, you know, the athletics is just athletics. It's not really, I don't feel like it's a community. I don't feel like it's a program. It's just, you know, football team here, basketball team. And I think that's where, you know, a lot of high school coaches, you know, could improve, is trying to build a community versus just a football or basketball factory.
And there's challenges. You know, I'm well aware there's going to be a public school coach that hears this and says, hey, that's a pie in the sky idea. You don't know what I'm dealing with the administration, the challenge of getting kids to practice and buying equipment and all the challenges that we all have as coaches, but especially in the public school setting. It doesn't have to be like this. It's the connection you make with your players. It's the connection you make with your coaches. It's pouring into coaches. I think I probably spend as much time and personal energy into relationships with coaches, because I know if that relationship's better, then their interaction with their players is going to be better. So not everything has to be big and glamorous and have 4 million impressions on social media and you know, flash and sizzle and great uniforms and all that to change a kid's life. I was the son of a public school coach. I grew up on the back of a blocking sled. I brought water to the boys. He had the same equipment for 20 years. My stepdad had a massive influence on a lot of young people. So I think our job as high school coaches, first and foremost, is to connect with our coaches and players and pour into them and make their high school journey better than it would have been if we weren't there.
You know, and you talked about, you know, in the previous question, you talked about improvement. So, you know, looking forward to this upcoming season, how can the team, the Lipscomb Academy program, how can it improve going forward on the field and off the field?
Well, it starts with me. I have to be a better coach. Again, I took a month after the season, reflected on a lot of things, and I'll take as much responsibility for the 3 losses as, especially the last one. Um, I think our coaching staff will do the same thing. They'll hear it from me. I'll be very honest with them on the things they need to get better at. And then our kids, we have to continue to get better in every area. I think it starts with physicality. If you're to point to one thing that CPA was able to beat us with, is they were more physical than us. They finished better. They broke more tackles. They tackled better. It's not a scheme thing. It's not a effort thing. Our guys played with great effort. It was just they were more physical. So this will be our first year. We have a full year with our strength coach, Luke Richardson, who, in my opinion, isn't just the best in football. He might be the best in the world. I mean, he's consulted with Olympic teams around the world, around the globe. He has a really good plan for our kids' development. Obviously, COVID interrupted his ability to spend the year with them. So hopefully they get a whole year with him. And I think we'll see gains there. I think there's a mindset to physicality that our boys need to embrace a little bit more. And then details. Like you look at little tiny things, little coaching points that our staff was able to pour into the kids, getting ready for that game or throughout the year that didn't quite show up when we needed them to show up. So those details will get better, and we'll be older. We started 4 freshmen last year. We'll probably start a couple this year. I tell the kids all the time, I don't see age. I see productivity. So the most productive kids will play. And we have some young kids that are new to our program that will be fantastic players. But we have a lot of competition, a lot of positions. They've all heard it from me as we launched into our offseason program that we got to get bigger and stronger and faster and smarter. Is attention to the details.
No, like I said, you mentioned details, and I kind of want to move conversation forward a little bit. And, with the Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions, Sean McVay is one of those coaches that, to me, it seems like from the outside looking in, obviously, I'm not connected in the NFL, but it's like he pays attention to the details. And, just last week, as an organization, they decided to make a move and traded for Matthew Stafford, got rid of Jared Goff, a couple first-round picks, a third-round pick. In your opinion, what are your thoughts on that trade? And who do you believe initially, got the better end of the stick?
Well, these are hard. We won't know, obviously, until they start playing. I think on paper, Stafford brings more movement qualities, movement assets at the quarterback position. He's going to play in a cluttered environment under chaos, probably a little more effectively than Jared did. And then the experience of him playing for so long, having pelts on the wall, being around a lot of coaches, I think he'll challenge Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coaches there, with some thought process and with some scheme things. So I think it's good on paper for them. And I think it's good for Jared Goff. He's obviously going somewhere where he's probably a little more appreciated, that values things he can do and doesn't just see the things he doesn't do well yet. He understands what rebuilding looks like. When he went to Cal, they were 1-10. He quickly got them to bowl games. So he understands what that process looks like. I think it's a good fit with Anthony Lynn as offensive coordinator, Dan Campbell, the head coach. They're going to be more of a pound you, play action team. I think that fits him really well. But ultimately, who wins in all of this? If you're talking about on this podcast, and I've done, I think, 3 others this week and multiple radio and TV shows, Park Avenue's winning. The NFL is winning because they're talking about quarterbacks. And they'll continue to talk about quarterbacks after the Super Bowl because they're going to start talking about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and Wilson from BYU and Trey Lance from North Dakota State and who are some Shane Buechele and Brady White and all these other kids that one day will be our NFL quarterback. And what they're not going to be talking about is the NBA or hockey or baseball or anything else. It's going to be football and the NFL and quarterbacks. So there's strategy to this too. And one of the strategies is the more quarterback movement that happens, the more conversation around quarterback movement. What's Tua going to do? Where's Cousins going to be? Where's Darnold going to be? What's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? Like, these aren't going away. And the big winner in all of it is Park Avenue.
And like that goes perfectly with my next question. You mentioned Deshaun Watson, who, the trade talks have dominated the headlines, and rightfully so. Led the league in passing last year. I would argue is a top 5 quarterback in this league, top 5, top 6.
Yep.
But with that being said, what team do you feel like best fits his skill set?
I haven't talked to Deshaun about what he's looking for. His skill set fits anything. There's quarterbacks that are transcendent of schemes. Deshaun is one of those. For as rough as his ride's been in Houston, he's also had some good stuff happen to him in Houston. And that was, he was demanded to learn a kind of graduate level way of playing the position, protection schemes, run game, situational football, that some quarterbacks never get exposed to because they don't have the sophistication of coaching. So he has that. I think, again, I don't want to say a team because I don't know what he's obviously talented players around him and lots of them. It's not just having the one stud receiver. It's having think of the Golden State Warriors when they were rolling. You have Steph, right? He's one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA. But then you had Thompson and Draymond Green and other role players that, given space, were very effective. Obviously, when Kevin Durant was there. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an offensive personnel group that can create space. The more space they create, the more effective you're going to be as the quarterback. So I think he's looking at it that way. I think, he'll be very judicious in how he evaluates everything. And wherever he goes, he'll be successful. If he goes to the right place, he has a chance to be uberly successful.
And, I was listening to your response, and you mentioned, he's one of those guys that transcends the scheme. And, coming up Sunday, we have, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time and one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time who both transcend their scheme. So from an X's and O's standpoint, when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what are some weaknesses that the opposing coaching staffs can exploit this coming up Sunday?
I'll keep it simple. I think for Kansas City, they have to find a way. I think you'll see Tyreek Hill move around even more than he usually does. They definitely have a speed matchup outside. Tampa's corners are physical guys. I wouldn't say they're, nobody can match Tyreek Hill's speed.
That's true.
He definitely has a speed advantage on the perimeter. I think Tampa will try to double him a lot when he's inside. Those are very hard doubles to maintain with motion and shifts. So I think you'll see him moving a lot. As if you're looking for one thing, if our eyeballs is going to catch one thing when Kansas City is on offense, it would be where's Tyreek Hill? Like the where's Waldo games. Like find Tyreek Hill, and if he's not getting the ball, he's probably doing something that's activating two defenders so somebody else can get the ball. I think Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be forced to play under duress a lot more than he normally does. He'll make his plays. Obviously, we know he's a magician doing that. I really am looking for, does he make any mistakes doing it? Usually, if you're forced to play 15, 20 plays under duress, there's going to be 2 to 3 catastrophic mistakes, fumbles, interceptions, just bad decisions. If he can limit those to none or one, when he's under duress, he's throwing the ball away, or he might take a 3-yard sack, or he might scramble for 2 yards. Those are plays that don't show up in the box score because it just says -1 or +2 or incomplete, but it may have saved them a mistake that flips the game and gives the ball back to Brady. So I'd say that's Chiefs offense. Bucks offense, I think they're going to take some shots. They always do, but I think it could even be even more this game. But to do so, they got to establish a running game. It's very hard to take shots against the Spags defense if you're not running the football. If they can run the football, force an extra player, Tyrann Mathieu, somebody else around the line of scrimmage, then they have some distinct matchups. I think Scotty Miller's really interesting to look at. He's maybe the second fastest person in the NFL. He says he's the fastest, but I think you can get him open because they got to spend so much time with Evans, even the tight ends, Gronk and Brait. Obviously, if Antonio Brown plays again, he demands some attention, and you can't account for everybody. And Scotty Miller is going to be a guy that is probably going to be on the third or fourth best secondary player for the Chiefs. And it wouldn't surprise me if he gets 3 to 5 big play opportunities. My buddy sent me a note the other day and said sleeper MVP pick for the Super Bowl, Scotty Miller, 66 to 1 odds. So it might be worth laying down $1 on that one.
You mentioned, things that they could attack, taking shots downfield. Patrick Mahomes is going to have to play under the rest. So, with that being said, who do you have win the Super Bowl? Or have you made your decision yet on who are you going to go with?
Not working in TV news, I don't have to. I don't have to pick somebody. But our coaches, we all have down there the whiteboard pick. I'm one of the outliers. I have the Chiefs. I think here's why I picked the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs can play bad and still win. And my experience with football, it's not how high your ceiling is, it's how high your floor is. And obviously we know if the Chiefs are going on all cylinders that they're probably unbeatable. They don't have Fisher. They don't have Schwartz. They had some early COVID issues this week. Who knows what's going to happen over the next few days. I think the Chiefs are the team that can have a lot of bad stuff happen to them and not execute at the highest level and still beat you. And that's why I chose them.
I chose them as well. And it's funny that you mentioned, they can play bad and still win. Because if you remember last year's Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes didn't look too great the first 3 quarters of that game, but he made a few plays late, and the team made a few plays late, and they were able to get the W.
We talk more about our floor than we do our ceiling. So, if you want to have a great program, you got to make sure that your bad is better than other people's good. And I think the Chiefs have proven they can do that.
It's gonna be interesting to see. I'm very excited. If Tom Brady wins again, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get their first one, Tom Brady wins again. I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Mahomes gets his second. I still wouldn't be surprised. I think this may be in my lifetime. It's probably the most excited I've been for a Super Bowl in terms of the quarterback matchups, and I think we're in for a great one, definitely.
I agree. I think this is. It's very people forget history so quick, but when Brady and Wilson played, I kind of had a feeling like I was as excited about that matchup as I'd ever been for a Super Bowl because Brady is already the GOAT. It's not like he wasn't the GOAT then. So we're having the exact same conversations about Brady now as we did for that Super Bowl. And then Russell had established himself as the young freak show quarterback. Like he just did stuff that nobody else was doing. And it was hard to comprehend. So, I don't think everybody says this is the greatest matchup of all time. Well, it's the one that's now. So we want to say it's the greatest, but man, there's been some pretty good ones. And I'd point back to that Brady Wilson one as one very similar to this.
Well, listen, Trent, those are pretty much all the questions I had for you today. I do want to say I appreciate you for taking time out your busy schedule and giving the show some great content. Like I said, my co-host couldn't be here today. He was a little disappointed about it, but he was excited that you took your time out, and we're grateful. We're extremely grateful for, like I said, for taking time out your busy schedule, and I really appreciate you. Well, there it is. Trent Dilfer interview. This is the First and Foremost Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Covington, and I'm out.